Hello, everyone. Hi, how are we doing? Live from Los Angeles, Lord Hellespont V with you today. We are going to complete our auction review, auction preview of the Sotheby's in Geneva. And then we're going to also look at Ineichen in Zurich, which has started to share this concept of just putting together 50 lot auctions around a certain theme. We have explored before their German speaking watches, as you remember. Now they have put together 50 lots of each for skeletons and tourbillon. They have put together something for modern independence, specifically by De Bethune and Laurent Ferrier, and they also have dates and calendars that is coming up as well. And all of those auctions are within the next few weeks and months. So let's jump right back in to Sotheby's. We'll also talk quite soon about the new Patek Philippe releases too, so stay tuned. We're going to come back to those. There are about 4 different Daytonas with the attractive Panda dial. Of course, very much desirable and always popular in these auction circuits. This is the 6263, obviously vintage piece, 1979, hand wound based on that Valjoux 72 caliber. These pieces, of course, have an even different vibe compared to modern Daytonas, which skew towards the classical side within the current Rolex catalog at any rate. But that makes them, at least to me, even more attractive because they are almost universally wearable. Whoever you are, however you dress, whether you're looking for a sports watch or something that can actually play a little bit on the dressier side, a Daytona works. That's one of the main reasons of its popularity. And of course, one thing that is great about this 6263 with the big red, which refers to the larger font of this red Daytona writing around the hour counter, is the contrast between the black bezel, the cream dial, and the black chronograph counters, black chronograph registers. And that's the reason, of course, that it's called Panda dial. This is number 99, 50 to 70,000 Swiss francs. We're continuing our preview of Sotheby's in Geneva for November 9th, 2022. We have another 6263, this time something a little more special. You'll see that the dial is only marked Rolex Oyster Cosmograph. As with a lot of dials from the 70s, it's a so-called Sigma dial, which basically notes that there is the fixtures on the dial are gold. The T refers to the now expired luminous material in tritium. And this is actually a chronograph that was commissioned by Peruvian Air Forces. That's why it says Fuerza Aérea del Perú. So you can see, in fact, the inscription on the case back that indicates the piece that at least points towards its provenance. Obviously, one of the important things about these sorts of pieces are they usually come with a particular set, within a particular set of serial numbers, within a particular period of production. that the only way to defend yourself against fakes is either to be absolutely well informed or to have the guidance and security of buying from someone you can actually trust. And even then, certain fishy things have happened in the past. That's the kind of thing that make people, at least some people, run away from vintage watches. But that's also on the hither side. That's the benefit of working with an auction house who's selling a watch that was previously sold by another auction house. So you have somehow the safety of mind that Phillips in 2019 sold the watch as such. And now 2022, Sotheby's in Geneva is selling the watch also in the same way. Thin military issue number on the lower part of the case back. Upper part, as you had seen, has the inscription of the Air Forces of Peru. And there's also the case number inscribed, of course, inside the case back, which is another way of settling this watch's provenance. And it's really in a great condition, seemingly, at least from the photographs. Very crisp, beautiful watch. In a way, perhaps made even more attractive by the lack of lots of writing on the dial. I kind of like it, you know. You know that it's a Daytona. It doesn't have to tell you that. This is lot 170 to 120,000 Swiss francs. Moving on to yet another Daytona. This time you have a bezel, tachymeter bezel, that is in matching material, that is in all stainless steel. So you have a relatively monochrome appearance that's only broken up by the chronograph registers, which can, of course, aid with the legibility. This is a beautiful piece. Again, the Panda configuration with the stainless steel bezel, 6239, an earlier piece from 1966 at lot 101. This is estimated for a value of 70 to 120,000 Swiss francs. Of course, again, another classic from the 60s with the matching riveted oyster bracelet that has a folded construction. With the pump pushers rather than the screw-down pushers that we had seen on the 70s examples, and the Daytona writing at the hour counter actually matches the colors of the subdials. Kind of a silvered dial color. I think it fits beautifully actually with the general monochromatic appearance of the watch. We have finally Paul Newman. This is lot number 102, reference 6239, from, again, more or less the same period of time, 1969. As you know, these have over the years become very desirable and very collectible. At the time, apparently, and we're talking about the late 60s, right, where self-winding chronograph movements were all the rage, where Zenit and Hoya and others were leading the pack in implementing this feature, producing a self-winding caliber, coming up with all sorts of different marketing tactics, right? You would see, for example, in a lot of the self-winding, in a lot of the automatic chronographs, at this period, you would see the crown is switched to the 9 o'clock position, just to separate it out from the pushers and get the user, get the customer out of the habit of looking something to wind, perhaps. And that's something they actually emphasized and underlined in the marketing. You can see Hoya ads like that, which I will show you momentarily. But I want you to, again, remember thus that this watch, as a hand-wound chronograph in late 60s and early 70s, was not actually very popular at all. And perhaps the guess of very educated expert people is that for every 10 Daytona that was sold at the time, which isn't much to begin with, there weren't that many Daytonas being sold. About one of these exotic dials were actually leaving the store. So something that was not so desired and almost completely forgotten suddenly became a kind of fetish. And we all know how the story unfolds, even though the details are quite controversial. I was listening to an old Paul Newman interview yesterday, and I was able to get the screen grab, and it made me really happy. It's from 1982, and he was talking to Ian Johnston, trying to explain himself about Somebody Up There Likes Me, which is an adaptation of Rocky Graziano's autobiography, where Paul Newman was, of course, cast as Rocky. And he was heavily criticized at the time for trying to imitate Marlon Brando's acting style. And he comes up with this interesting story. I don't know whether it's true or not, but it's certainly very, very fascinating in details. Apparently, Rocky Graziano used to see this kid on the ringside once every so often while he was training, while he was sparring. He would just observe him, make sketches, write things down. And one day he actually struck a conversation with him. Turns out that the young man was an actor, and he invited him to his play one day, which happened to be a streetcar named Desire, and the actor happened to be Marlon Brando. So Paul Newman's explanation was that, in a way, they were both trying to model the posture, the attitude, and just the being of a middleweight boxing champion, and that somehow brought them to a similar space in terms of their acting, in terms of the physicality, and in terms of the natural flow of their acting. As you know, later on, Marlon Brando was blamed in certain circles for being quote unquote lazy, not memorizing his lines, but actually that was part of his method, right? The idea was that you can only have that sort of natural spontaneity if you don't go purely by the script. So that's Paul Newman's story, and he was wearing his Paul Newman on a Bund strap, on a rather exotic Bund strap as well. Looks like crocodile to me, maybe alligator. And a very interesting flora pattern tie. But hey, Paul Newman is a man of style. I'm sure he could get away with it, and he looks great. But before Paul Newman was photographed, and before especially Italian collectors started obsessing about this particular model, which they at least thought identified on Paul Newman's wrist. This watch had a very hard time being moved by the dealers. So that's a little tidbit there, a little piece of history. St. Peter, welcome back. New release overload today. As you see, I'm not talking about the new releases. If someone wants to direct a question to me, if you have anything specific to ask, the chat is open. The super chats are available, so feel free to distract me from approaching the world of watches from this very historical standpoint. There's another beauty here, 14 karat gold 6241 Daytona mounted on a matching bracelet. Again, that's a gold version of that riveted bracelet. Beautiful piece, black and gold. You can never really go wrong. You have again the three lines of writing: Rolex, Cosmograph, Daytona, and that's one of the ironies, of course, of the so-called space race in the world of horology, because as you might know, both Rolex Daytona and Omega Speedmaster were fighting over the NASA contract, and they were both being tested and trialed by NASA to be approved on a space mission on what would become the mission to the moon. So Rolex named this piece Cosmograph initially, and even when a racing theme emerged for it, it was first named Le Mans and not Daytona. And inversely, of course, Omega Speedmaster, which came out around 1957, was quite literally racing chronograph, right? Speedmaster. So it was more, in a way, directed towards motorsports, sports, and a dynamic kind of expression and application from the very first. But the Speedmaster ended up becoming the moon watch and giving, in a way, a slight edge to Omega at the time. When we were approaching the 70s, the Rolex Cosmograph took on the name Daytona and became an icon on its own regard. And over time, in fact, it took over and it superseded Daytona. This is the so-called Jumbo logo, 6241, lot 103, from roughly 1966, for an estimated value of 150 to 250,000 Swiss francs. Again, a modified version of the Valjoux 72 base, a hand-wound caliber, of course. And one detail to note, again, as we go through these auctions, you keep seeing the usual suspects, right? Sometimes when I say usual suspects in the auction circuit, I do mean that you see the similar kinds, similar genres of watches. And that's true. There's always a Paul Newman Daytona. There's always 5513. There's always a 1618, two different kinds of Submariners. There's always 2499, especially if they can find the pristine example. Always 1463 Pateks hand-wound chronograph based on the Lemonia CH27 movement. All of these things keep reappearing, but there's another way where we see the usual suspects, which is the same watches, basically, literally the same timepieces, changing hands over the course of years and sometimes decades. Some of these pieces that are really rare end up coming back to the auction circuit every 10 years or so, every decade at least once. And some of the more desirable, but not some of the more desirable pieces that are not as rare, they keep reappearing every 2 years, every 3 years, because you know how nasty this habit is. And a lot of times, to allow that new piece to come in, sometimes you have to let go of things that you really like. And this might well be one of those instances for the current owner. I really love the champagne tone for those chronograph registers, which I think goes really well with this gold Daytona. And really, it's a beautiful approach to the 60s Daytona, to the hand-wound Daytona, to these early series of Daytonas, to go with gold. Again, they're all very expensive, but if you're used to modern watches, right, stainless steel watches from the 60s, they might not satisfy you. I actually love the fact that they're so much lighter. To me, that feels sportier. To me, that feels nicer. That kind of gives you a more casual feeling on the wrist. But of course, a full gold watch with mounted on its matching bracelet always has a certain heft. And this is lot number 103. It is estimated to fetch somewhere between $150,000 to $250,000. Peeping Time, welcome, nice to see you. We have another exotic dial, another Paul Newman, this time without the bracelet. It has an estimated value of 100 to 200,000 Swiss francs, another 6239. We have 6263. This is basically the watch that our friend Boston Collector just got, with the screw down pushers, the reverse panda dial, the contrasting bezel there. It comes on leather strap in this case, right? Not a bracelet, a matching Rolex buckle, which I think is a very classy way of wearing these pieces as well, even though some might still prefer to wear it on the full bracelet. This, as you see, has an even more interesting configuration, has the 4-line writing right under the coronet at 12 o'clock, has the chronometer certification for another 2 lines, and then cosmograph around the upper part of the hour counter. No naming of the Daytona, but again, we all know what it is. And this is lot 104, reference 6263, 200,000 to 300,000 Swiss francs. At times, of course, and there's no way of double checking with Rolex, unfortunately, because they are not forthcoming with this sort of information. But at the time, it was very common for people to treat the bracelet as optional. And that's not only the case with gold watches, right? A lot of times, when you look at the advertisements from the age, you would see a price for the watch, and with the Swiss bracelet or with the Geneva bracelet, with this, with the Oyster bracelet, with the matching bracelet, and that would be an extra, say, 10, 15, maybe $35. Same thing with gold watches, and we would never be wiser, right? Unless it is something that is noted on the papers that the watch comes with, and a lot of times that's not the case either. You would never know. Unless there's a receipt for the watch, you'll never know. But at least here, Sotheby's was nice enough to match it um, with a yellow gold buckle with the crown there at top, where you at least have this elegant presentation. I think, again, beautifully wearable on that band as well. Yet another Paul Newman exotic dial. You have the Oyster writing, Oyster Soto Mark II, 6263. This is even more rare on the bracelet, 300 to 600,000 Swiss francs of estimated value for lot 106. You have an early production Audemars Piguet Royal Oak 5202 ST from 1974, but from the so-called A series, so the first run of production for the Royal Oak ever that started in 1972. Estimated value is 60 to 80. Again, on the conservative side, but we don't know what's coming. We don't know how things will unfold. So I don't think it's unreasonable. It's not the most, interesting, attractive, or stellar example that I've ever seen, but it looks just right. The way that the dial has aged doesn't have anything unattractive about it. Of course, you will have one or two little imperfections here. Trust that the estimate would have been even higher if it looked like it had just emerged from a safe deposit box. In this case, it still looks rather beautiful with a little bit of a patina in good, honest condition. They valued it at 60 to 80,000 Swiss francs. And you kind of see the difference here, right? You have something and there's a reason they put it right next to each other, right? Here's an example that's pristine. That is also a series. That is this time from 1973. Another 5202, and this time the estimate is 80,000 to 120,000 Swiss francs. This is lot 108. And they are basically teaching you by juxtaposing them, by putting them next to each other, how much of a difference that pristine condition can make in the valuation of a vintage watch. Right? When you have that sort of sharp case where everything is clean, where all the angles are still very prominent, all the bevels and chamfers are proper and properly polished. You have that definitive contrast between satin brushed surfaces and mirror polished edges. It's really the epitome of that 70s Jarrajanta design, a very clean example, and it's valued to fetch somewhere between 80,000 to 120,000 Swiss francs. Thank you, Muki. Thank you. Yes, please hit the like button. It really, really does help. We have a B series again. We don't need to tarry too much with a little more, with a little more patina on the dial. Certainly nothing out of the ordinary again. Good condition, not stellar. And it's from the B series, which puts it a few years later to the mid 70s rather than early 70s. And there you have it. The estimate is already 75 to 100,000 Swiss francs. You have a reduced size uh, Royal Oak from mid 90s. As you see, the way that the index markers have aged actually gives it a very unique appearance. You may or may not like it. I actually love the fact that the background has this touch of gilt, touch of yellow gold, touch of champagne, which goes really well with the case material, with the material of the bracelet in this watch. Um, the mid-sized Royal Oaks were again not very desirable just 5 years ago. In fact, they were entirely undesirable. They started picking up in value when people couldn't find anything else. I think they're going to come down eventually, but this is an example with a specific provenance. Lot 111 is estimated to bring somewhere between 40 to 60,000 Swiss francs. Let's read what the idea is. The present lot bears the inscription ASF World Cup 94. This is the World Cup in the US, which is coming back, by the way, to US, Mexico, and Canada the next time. Of course, we have Qatar coming up at the end of the year. I'm always very excited about World Cups. ASF are the initials for the Swiss Football Association. It's believed that the players of the Swiss national team were offered the reference 14790 to celebrate their participation to the World Cup. That's really nice. 20 pieces in yellow gold and 10 pieces in stainless steel. That's very interesting. Cheers, guys, by the way. That's very, very interesting. I wonder how they decided who gets the gold, who gets the steel. I'm guessing the players get the gold version and the staff gets the remaining 10 in steel. But that's a nice story. That's a nice provenance. Again, unless you have a monster wrist, the mid-sized Royal Oaks actually fit really well, even though it measures 36 millimeter on paper. An integrated bracelet watch always has a different kind of presence on the wrist, always wears a little larger. So go out, try it out. A lot of times this is the kind of watch, even with how much more desirable they have become, this is the kind of watch that you can come across if you actually frequent jewelers and secondary watch dealers. So it's an interesting model to check out, and I'm assuming that over the next few months the prices will continue to come down on it. You can't find them for 3,000-5,000 in steel, maybe 7.5 in 7.5 and 8 in gold anymore, but they should still be available at a reasonable price point soon enough again. I always had a soft spot, of course, for Royal Oak perpetual calendars. This lot 113 is very intriguing for me. And what you have here is reference 25654. Has, again, that beautiful, largely monochromatic appearance in stainless steel. The jumbo case is there. The piece is again, for all its complication, relatively thin. One of the beautiful things about the Royal Oak perpetual calendar. And it somehow just fits. The fact that this sort of seemingly sporty watch would get this sort of treatment, just the right amount of blue on the dial, the moon phase and the heat blued indicators in the 3 calendar sub-registers really makes it a wonderfully balanced watch. You don't get the usual tapisserie dial treatments, but instead you get something that's perhaps a little on the dressier side, a little on the a little more in the tradition of a complicated uh, Swiss high horology dress watch. But in either case, of course, you don't lose those brutal modernist lines of the original Janta design either. A great balance. I love them when they're time only, but in perpetual calendar, they're certainly very special. Why do you think Vacheron Constantin churns out these perpetual calendar overseas models these days? They have been learning from somebody. We have a number of interesting Daytonas that are more modern. But before we get to those, again, you have a pink gold version with that off-white dial that does actually have the tapisserie treatment. Beautiful limited edition 25/6/86, pink gold 1993. It's out of 18 pieces. And it is estimated to fetch somewhere between 170,000 to $250,000. This is lot number 115. You have a beautiful 10-day power reserve Patek Philippe gondola there. A rectangular Art Deco case design that has these protruding flanks, which makes it really original. A beautiful form-fitting movement in there that truly makes a mark, right? It's already quite impressive when you have a 7 or 8 day power reserve, which the gondola oftentimes has. But this is the model that they also executed with a tourbillon, but this is just the 10-day power reserve version, no tourbillon. Still a beautiful hand-wound movement that takes you through 10 full days when fully charged. And you can see from that earlier period of Patek, pre-2009, for the most part, there are exceptions. You'll see the hallmark of Geneva in the movement that certifies the standards of assembly and finish, the kind of work that goes into the movement. This is from roughly year 2000, lot 119. Patek Philippe gondola with a very attractive navy blue dial, reference 5100G, estimated to go for somewhere between $20,000 to $40,000. Again, these kinds of shapes that are perhaps not as common as the classic round designs, with prestige complications, with these sorts of special features, and with otherwise very attractive design elements, always present a relative deal, always offer some sort of value proposition. And this is certainly the case here. And I think from the profile here, especially, you can see how beautifully designed this case is. The way that those lugs form a teardrop at the end, I always mix these things up. The convex, I think, the convex shape, the domed shaped shape of the crystal. It's a beautiful, beautiful watch from the front, from the profile. I really do like it. But again, since it's an unusual shape, it's gonna fight for a different segment. I have another very complicated Patek, the Celestial reference 5102, uh, an astronomical complication with an entire sky chart, phases and positions of the moon, and of course, time of the meridian passage of Sirius and the moon from a little more than a decade ago. This is lot 118, estimated to fetch somewhere between $150,000 to $200,000. And again, you have just a very beautiful, somewhat chunkier execution in terms of the case design, which is perhaps mellowed out a little bit by the Calatrava crosses, by the alternating half Calatrava crosses that decorate the case flanks. It's a very attractive case, quite chunky, quite big, 43 millimeters, because of the complication, of course, and because you want to display that dial an entire astronomical chart that you put at the center stage of your timepiece. So it is what it is, right? It's supposed to be wearable, but also has to execute and has to display the function for which it is intended. And as you see, even the skeletonized hands follow that particular principle, right? The way they are hollowed out allows you to always have a largely uninterrupted view of the entire dial. You have some sealed chronographs there, 5975. You remember a similar piece. This is the 175th year celebration chronograph, the white gold version, somewhere between 50 to 70,000 at lot 119, and the pink gold version, so 5975R, that's also sealed at 120, that's also 50 to 70,000. Of course, comes as a full set. The double boxes, the coffin box, as well as the delivery coffin. Excuse me. And these are lots 119 to 120, 50 to 70,000 US dollars. And of course, what I really like about this, as I said, is the multi-scale chronograph function. You have everything. You have a telemeter, you have a pulsometer, you also have at the very center a snailed tachometer as well. So any kind of chronograph reading is possible from these timepieces, from this particular model. You have again one of the most complicated and prestigious Pateks. It's a true grand complication in Patek's terms. Lot 121, this is 5004 P-033. It's a diamond set dial, a black dial. And what you have there is a perpetual calendar with the moon phase and a split second chronograph, right? Where you can actually split by this additional pusher on the crown. And of course, you do have an exhibition case back where you can take a look at that split second perpetual calendar chrono movement. It's roughly from 2007. So as you can see, has the Geneva seal on it. And it has an estimated value of 280,000 to 350,000 Swiss francs. This is lot 121, reference 5004 P-033. a split-second perpetual calendar chronograph with a diamond set dial and platinum case. You have some of my, or one of my favorite Daytona references there, the 5-digit 4-line version, lot 123. This is the first year where Rolex introduced or reintroduced the Daytona as a chronograph with a self-winding caliber, which was caliber 4030 in Rolex jargon, essentially Zenit El Primero caliber 400 that they assembled and put together with their own rotor. I like it in its simplicity. I like the proportions of this watch. I actually like that the tachymeter bezel is in the matching material in stainless steel, and those outer rings of the chronograph registers give just enough of a contrast to tie everything together. If you ask me, of course, the Daytona writing in red completes what remains a perfect picture. And this particular piece is estimated to go for somewhere between 30 to 50,000 Swiss francs. Of course, this reference was produced for about a dozen years, so you can actually find an example of it quite regularly for less on the secondary market. And this is Zenit Daytonas, the self-winding Rolex Daytonas with the Zenit caliber base, with the Zenit Eboche from 1998 to 2000, present to me the best value and the most lasting value among all Rolex Daytonas. If you have more questions, of course, you can always send me an email. If you want me to look at a particular example, you can always shoot me an email, and I'm sure we can work something out. Oh, Fat win back then. Thank you so much. 20 pounds sterling. Thank you. Congratulations on getting monetized. Hard work pays off. Thank you so much. Thank you for your kind words and well wishes. And Boston says ASMR auctions. Hey, I'm glad I can give you something like that. St. Peter says convex is correct when I was talking about the domed crystal of the Patek Philippe Gondola, their rectangular Art Deco watch. Easy way to remember is concave bands inward, like going into a cave. Perfect. Amazing. That's great. And thank you again, Fats. Thank you for that contribution and for your kind words. And Peeping Time gives the thumbs up. Please hit the like button. I really appreciate it. What I don't like is that the right lug is smaller than the left lug, not so on gold or platinum models. Yeah, look, I mean, it's actually a way of visually balancing the watch. You know, a lot of times you will see, in fact, for example, one of the watches that I really like, actually, Universal Genève, in late 60s came out with this model called the Space Compacts. And those pieces are defined by their asymmetric case. And that's because they have this rather normal left flank, and then with all the appointments of the pushers, which are screw down pushers in that case as well, and a very unique piece of design, make it look very unbalanced. So somehow, visually, I find the 5-digit reference actually quite a beauty. I understand what you mean, but I think those contours actually help it look much more balanced ultimately. Pardon me. They have a number of 6-digit references of the Daytona, which were operated by the caliber 4130, which was Rolex's in-house movement, which is what they replaced the Zenit El Primero based caliber. Again, those are also a great option. But of course, again, the 5-digit offers the chance that it is a limited production. Rolex isn't going anywhere else to source any movements, much less a chronograph movement anytime soon, which really started this whole shtick of having everything in-house since 2000. And limited production, limited number, rarity always means a lot in a collecting community. So that's something that I will just note. You have the, of course, classic reference of the Panda, a modern classic, so to speak, 116-500 LN. That is estimated to go for somewhere between $26,000 to $30,000. You have a 6-digit steel Daytona with this matte yellow / lemon colored dial. Very unique, interesting piece from right around 2000. And because of its rarity, of course, it's commanding quite the premium there. Lot 127, 50,000 to 80,000 Swiss francs. You have the two Daytona beaches in pink, one with the classic Romans, the other is the Meadow Soprano Special with the diamond set dial. In each case, very interesting watches. They were produced in pink, in yellow, in this kind of shade of a spearmint green, I want to say, and also turquoise uh, with mother of pearl dials that uh, matched that particular shade, as well as a full set of boxes and leather wallets that actually were made out of the cut out of the same lizard skin. So interesting pieces. You have the 6-digit reference at 128. That is estimated to go for somewhere between 60 to 80,000 Swiss francs. And at 131 and 132, you have the yellow and pink with the 5-digit reference 16519. That last 9, of course, stands for white gold. And in each case, you have an estimate of $70,000 to $90,000. You have a so-called John Mayer 116508 at 135, roughly from year 2018. It's estimated to fetch somewhere between $70,000 to $90,000. Comes as a full set. Again, a piece that for long was somewhat neglected, somewhat forgotten about, and for two very specific reasons, it was catapulted into prominence. One was the fact that people started having less qualms about having Daytonas in precious metal because stainless steel was simply not available or accessible to a lot of people. They started basically costing as much as precious metal versions would on the secondary market. So people were more interested in gold Daytonas. But of course, it also helped that John Mayer co-signed this model by highlighting it in his second iteration of the talking watches with Bank Climber on Hodinkee. And suddenly we're here with the lot 135 with an estimated value of 70 to 90,000 Swiss francs. Boston Collector says, I need to research 6263 auctions. I want to know the longer term value proposition of when I sell it. Auction websites, by the way, these auction houses, they're not only useful when they're having an auction, they also have a great database. So you can actually use them for the kind of research that you are proposing now. And again, wear your watch in good health. That's a very, very beautiful acquisition. We just went through a similar piece or two to your watch. So feel free to rewind and watch it on your own time. Interesting. We have a few other green dial or green Rolex theme back to back there. You have the so-called Kermit, the 50th anniversary Submariner, 16610. Early enough, but not from 2000, 2003 exactly. This is a watch that will always be a classic. Has the classic proportions of a pre-ceramic Submariner, of a pre-ceramic Rolex, with the aluminum bezel, with the green bezel, of course, to connote its importance as the anniversary model. This is lot 136 with an estimated value of $15,000 to $20,000. You have the so-called Hulk, which is what replaced in the age of ceramic bezel inserts the Kermit, the 50th anniversary model. This one, of course, has the lunette verte, the green ceramic bezel, as well as a green sunburst dial, which in fact only really registers in a prominent, obvious, and eye-catching way in direct sunlight. In most other instances, actually, this watch is much more subtle than what it might evoke on paper. If Aussie expat jumps on, he can talk us a little bit more about it, since he owns an example. But this is lot number 137, and it is estimated to fetch somewhere between 20 to 30,000 Swiss francs. Welcome, everyone. Again, we are continuing with our auction preview for Sotheby's November 9, 2022 in Geneva. Hit the like button and enjoy the show. You have a Tiffany blue, turquoise dial Rolex Oyster Perpetual, the OP, reference 124300 from roughly 2 years ago. I wonder if they wrote anything interesting here. Not really. But of course, these are no longer in production. This is the OP41 with that turquoise dial. And the estimate is 30 to 40,000 Swiss francs. Still quite up there. Still quite unreasonable, if you ask me, just for a dial color. But it is what it is. People go after the hype. People do follow and stoke and encourage each other. And people are just, I think, preternaturally encouraged to mimic each other's taste and desires. So here we are with a so-called Tiffany blue dial on an OP41, expecting to fetch 30 to 40,000 Swiss francs. Finally, we have a page full of Pateks This should be interesting because there will be a few reminders of what we have seen as new releases, and it's a good way to remember that they were really pretty much the same. This is 5990, for example. As you see, it has that gradient gray dial instead of the blue dial with the new 5990. This is from 2018. It has that ever more popular travel time function, which has these two pushers on the left flank of the case that allows you to advance the local time back and forth. Uh, so kind of a jump hour function there. And obviously, you also have, as you can see from that single register down here for the chronograph, a flyback chronograph with an hour counter there and a date indicator. Both the local time and home time have their own apertures right here that also serve as a day and night indicator. Of course, you had the pink gold version of that with a blue dial, and that is estimated to fetch somewhere between 200 to 300 Swiss francs here at lot 149. 148 was expected to fetch 110 to 200. You have the now classic and discontinued reference 5711 in steel with an estimated value of 80 to 160,000 Swiss francs. As you know, we have just been served a 5811G, the new iteration of the Patek Philippe Nautilus that was first introduced in 1976. Slightly larger, a little more expanded to my eyes, at least. I have not had the chance to try this watch on, but on paper, in the photographs, it looks like it has a more elliptical appearance vertically. But what do I know? We'll see. But this is the modern classic 5711, lot 145, for an estimated value of 80 to $160,000. Mixing things up, this is 155. It is platinum perpetual calendar with the moon phase. Of course, you have the leap year as well as the day and night indicator there. The two-tone top dial is pretty unique in platinum. As you can see from the slider on the case band right here, what we have is also a chiming watch. Wonderfully decorated lugs. Beautifully designed case. This is, of course, the absolute grand complication, right? You have the perpetual calendar, you have a tourbillon, you also have a minute repeater. I guess the only thing we're missing really in this case is a chronograph, but no matter, this is still great. And usually this is something Patek only does in carrying out the serial number on the dial when they produce a tourbillon, because you can't actually see the tourbillon on the dial. So what they do is basically to inscribe the number of that caliber on the dial. As with any platinum Patek watch, it has that single brilliant diamond. And there you can see the tourbillon cage on the back. The Calatrava cross very prominently displayed there. You have the 5074R, I think a very elegant looking watch. The black and gold, of course, it's a classic. The stepped case, uh, that that beautiful shade of the night sky emerging at 6 o'clock with the moon phase. You have, in addition to the perpetual calendar, of course, which is a signature for a complicated Patek Philippe watch, a minute repeater once again, and this has an estimated value of 450,000 to 650,000 Swiss francs. You have the 5270G. This is a perpetual calendar chronograph. Again, you have day of the week, month, day and night indicator, leap year indicator, moon phase, and the two chronograph registers, as you can see. Very beautiful kind of spider-shaped stepped lugs. The movement on display on the case back. Year 2011, of course, you have the self-signed movement there with the double P. Everything is very sharp and crisp, of course, as it should be, with the matching déployant buckle. And for lot 153, which is a perpetual calendar in white gold, perpetual calendar chronograph, you have an estimated value of 70,000 to 140,000 Swiss francs. Thank you, Trooper. Thank you. Peeping Time says baby blue. Boston says, do you think it's hype or just a popular color? I think we're talking semantics here, right? There's a reason that certain colors become popular. They don't just suddenly appear in cycles of natural history, right? I think there is oftentimes a certain marketing campaign, concerted more or less, that goes into deciding these trends on fashion, right? Tiffany blue doesn't suddenly become popular, and it's not only on dials of watches. You saw it everywhere these last 2, 3, 4 years, but especially the last 2, 3 years. So it is what it is. I don't use it necessarily as a vicious term. I don't necessarily use it as an insult. I don't completely discount a watch that I might myself call a hype watch. You know, the absolute trinity of hype watches is Daytona, Royal Oak, and Nautilus. And I'm a huge fan of the Royal Oak. I certainly wouldn't mind the Daytona, and I just simply don't care for a Nautilus. So for me, whether you call it hype, you call it popular, I call it tomato, you call it tomato, it is what it is. It is something that's trends for several times its suggested retail price, even before it got discontinued. And I don't think it's worth that much money. I said a similar thing about the 5811G. You know, why pay $70,000 for a three-hander with a date just because it's Patek Philippe? Even if it's white gold, I mean, even if it's precious metal, who cares? $70,000 for a time and date watch that also doesn't have a movement to write home about. It's a pretty standard um, self-winding movement with a full rotor. So what? I don't think it's worth it even at retail price. In OP41's case, I think Oyster Perpetuals are great watches for what they're supposed to sell for at an authorized dealer. For 30,000 and plus for certain colors, I absolutely don't think they're worth it. And St. Peter says the turquoise color is popular, of course, pairs excellently with natural stone jewelry set in white metal. That's a good way to put it, but it's I think it's still popular with beyond men who are into Western jewelry and beyond, again, the group of women who like wearing jewelry in white metal and turquoise stones. Yeah, you pretty much answered your own question with a series of questions. Peeping Time says, I like the coral red. I think out of those series, if we don't count the silver and black, my favorites have to be the green and the candy pink, actually. St. Peter says, I wanted the coral red. Let's skip ahead a little bit. If you want me to highlight something, feel free to super chat it. And Boston Collector says, I have the green OP. It's actually very appealing. I like the 5711 or Royal Oak. The simplicity is appealing and proportions are great. I agree about the Royal Oak. I've never liked the Nautilus, but I completely agree about the Royal Oak. Peeping Time says, now the Aquaterra is available. I prefer it to the Datejust. That's a good take. And Boston Collector says, my wife indeed wants the Tiffany because it matches so well. Yeah, of course, 5990 is a much better choice. I mean, not that those are usually available to the average customer, but it is what it is. 5970 is, of course, a modern classic of a perpetual calendar chrono reference. It's very popular among collectors, not only because it really gives you some of the best that Patek Philippe has to offer, it's also quite wearable for the modern taste at 40 millimeters. In this case, you have a piece that's from 2008, and you can see that it is, in fact, CH27 based movement with the Geneva seal. The case looks pretty sweet and unabused. 5970J perpetual calendar chronograph by Patek. 152 is the lot number, and the estimated value is 80 to 120,000 Swiss francs. And we have the two retrograde perpetual calendars. You have the 5159R. I think this is a very underrated watch. Pink gold, very classical design, perhaps a little dressier. The guilloche sun rays emerging from the center of the dial, Roman numerals. You have the date in this rather stylized font in a retrograde complication, which means that at the beginning of the month, it simply jumps back and resets to 1, which is always a nice display of horology. The leap year indicator, the day of the week, month, and the moon phase. I think just the variety of fonts, the variety of different things, colors, and decorations that go on this style really appeals to me. Probably doesn't appeal to a lot of people, which is what makes this particular watch from 2010 to have such an appealing price point, relatively speaking. It's expected to fetch somewhere between 20 to 30,000 Swiss francs. And just to alert you again, they didn't include a picture, but as you can see from that little bit there, this is a hinged case back, so you can actually prop that up and see what is beating inside as well. And you have finally 150, which is 5160 500G white gold version with a little more handcraft going on there. The case beautifully decorated, Breguet numerals instead of the Romans. You have a more ornate wave like motif at the center of the dial that follows the lines of the decoration of the case. It's a very unusual watch for Patek, but very unique, very ornate, and quite beautiful, even as a piece of jewelry, simply. The case back is similarly decorated in this floral slash wave motif, hinged case back, of course, which you can prop open. And you have, again, a perpetual calendar with the retrograde dates and a moon phase. And 150 is estimated to fetch somewhere between 120 to 180,000 US dollars. Last but not least, we have a Geneva Seal 5980, which is a stainless steel Nautilus flyback chronograph with that rather ingenious single register solution to the chronograph. You have, of course, column wheel, vertical clutch design. You can have the chronograph running as your running seconds, as your center seconds. It wouldn't be a problem. It's a great piece, if you ask me. This is one Nautilus that I can get on board with. It's a beautiful watch. It packs quite a punch into that case. This is lot 147, a stainless steel flyback chronograph in the Nautilus case, roughly from year 2009, with a caliber that carries the hallmark of Geneva and has an estimated value of 120,000 to 180,000 Swiss francs. So there we have it. I will quickly go to the Ineichen auction. Oh, Jake Brooks, thank you so much. Thank you. He is celebrating our achievement, the way we built here a community that carried us over and beyond 1,000 subscribers. Thank you, JB. It's thanks to people like you, and it's thanks to your presence and support that we are here, and we have some ways to go. We are only starting out, 1,000 down, more to go, at least another 9 more to go that I can see in short term. Cheers. Thank you. Mookie says, haven't seen the new ATs with rubber, but I would imagine so. Which, the ATs, you mean the Aquaterras for the Omega? I mean, the ATs on the Aquaterras on rubber, I think are a great deal to begin with. Always a great part of the Omega lineup. I couldn't quite jive with the release right in the run up to the Watches and Wonders, which seem to replicate a lot of what Rolex already has in the catalog and a lot of what they were selling like hotcakes. Again, no no hate from me, right? I understand. I know the game. They are in the business of selling watches. If it helps them sell watches, if it helps them become more popular, so be it. But a lot of Omega's brand is based on being different from Rolex, even as they are Rolex's most immediate competitor, or have been at least historically. So, in terms of the more sustainable vision for the brand's own identity, I had some worries. I still do, but the Aquaterra is a great watch, and I think a great deal for the money. JB says you'll be surprised that YouTube will actually recommend you when they have 20%. I think they might actually have a little more. I feel like they have 30%, no? Hmm, I don't know. I'll double check. Tim G, hey, thank you for the thumbs up. Thanks for hitting the like button. Now we're going to switch gears and go to the themed auctions by Ineichen Zürich. Ineichen Zürich is one of the oldest watch auctioneers. Um, they are going with this disruptive campaign of timed auctions, themed auctions that are restricted to 50 lots, and that they started doing on a pretty regular schedule, every 2 weeks. We have gone through their so-called German-speaking watches themed and timed auction. This one is called uh, skeletonized and tourbillon watches. A reverse tourbillon. Enjoy for a second while I go get some water, freshen up, and I'll be back in a few minutes. Thank you. All right, we're back. We're back. Mookie says Omega makes too many variations, but I love their offerings, especially with accessibility, value, and the more regular shopping experience. All right, so this is a focused auction that Ineichen Zurich is holding. 50 lots, all organized around the theme of skeletonized and tourbillon. So some version of open working, more or less. You have a lot of interesting Daniel Roth watches, a lot of interesting Debetunes. Um, we saw the Reverso. There's some Gérard Perregaux. Back to back, you see a lot of interesting examples. Max Büse and friends. So let's dive in. Beauvais, uh, Konstantin Chaikin, and all these different, some independent models. You have the Harry Winston, which is a brand that has, again, within the whole conglomerate of 17 watch brands that the Swatch Group owns, they seem to have been lost and fallen by the wayside as a maker of extravagant watches. But here is tourbillon with 110 hours power reserve, a 5-day power reserve. You have that beautiful Harry Winston logo. It's an X center, so they have a separate smaller subdial for the hours and minutes. And you have, of course, the tourbillon. And the estimate is somewhere between 20 to 30,000. A platinum watch that comes on a white gold clasp and a leather strap. And more or less, of course, since you have a 1 minute tourbillon, that serves as your second hand, right? Since it makes a whole tour every minute, which is, of course, always an exciting aspect of a tourbillon watch. Again, not my favorite complication necessarily, but it does bring a different kind of visual excitement to many. Yeah, I find Harry Winston watches very elegant. I know they are not very popular. I know I'll be shredded to pieces in the chat. But hey, I think they are very special. Here you can see it from the back, the power reserve right here. This is the tourbillon. And there you have the beautiful case that has its own travel pouch as well. And this is a piece that has a starting bid of 20,000 Swiss francs, and there's already one bid that is lot 46. Thank you, Gondog. Thank you. I really appreciate it. I'm gonna send you guys the link actually. Okay, let's mix things up a little bit. So they have 3 auctions, right? I'm gonna send the link for each one of them down there. And you guys are free to scour these and let me know if there is a watch or if there is a particular piece or pieces that you want me to take a look at. Skeletons and tourbillons is one group. The modern independence is another group. And then at the third auction, that's in December, is complications. It's actually calendars and dates. Dates. That's that's gonna be a special auction on December 3rd. The Modern Independence auction is in November, and Skeletons and Tourbillons is wrapping up at the end of October. It is actually a live auction. I should correct myself. That is taking place on October 29th in Zürich. In the meantime, while you are all looking at it, you have a number of different Breguet examples, both the classic tourbillons, of course, tourbillon being Abraham Louis Breguet's invention, and there signature complication. They are very heavily represented here, not to mention the Tradition watch, which has this sort of steampunk retrofuturistic vibe with its centered hours and minutes dial and largely open worked, or rather exposed internal workings with the caliber that you can see right through. I want to start with this very special Vacheron Constantin chronograph. They call it the Medicus because it's a two beautiful two register chronograph that has an open worked dial. It has those old school sword hands by Vacheron Constantin, very distinctive. It has a cushion shaped case, these very sporty stepped rectangular pushers. And of course, as it fits the name, Medicus, it is a pulsometer on the chapter ring, which is graduated to 30 pulses. Right, and they rendered that in Latin, I guess, to fit that fancier name, Medicus. And you see how beautifully open worked the movement is from both sides, a hand wound piece with a half Maltese cross design of a déployant buckle. I think this is a very elegant watch. There's already a starting bid made of 15,000 Swiss francs for lot 10. A wonderful chronograph, very unique, certainly a beautiful platinum piece. I hope it will find a lucky buyer. Oh, Marcelo is here. Happy birthday, Marcelo. I know it's been a little while, but good to see you, and thank you for your kind words. Good night, Boston. Nice to see you. So this is the Medicus, the platinum hand-wound chronograph that has some very unique features by Vacheron Constantin. The open work dial, the sporty stepped pushers there, rectangular, a pulsometer on the chapter ring that is graduated to 30 pulses. Very interesting watch. Again, I'm not a huge fan of skeletonized dials, but even I can find some intriguing propositions on this curation. And there's already an opening bid of 15,000 Swiss francs. The estimate itself is between 15 to $20,000. And interestingly, there's no buyer's premium for this particular auction, at least. So that's very encouraging for people who are actually interested in this piece. Again, it's not a watch that's in perfect or pristine condition. It's not a watch that's classically designed either, but for the right person, it can be both a great value and really a piece of art to wear on the wrist. You have next to the Vacheron Constantin Medicus, You have a patrimony retrograde right here, which is a day date with an open worked dial. It has the retrograde date function right there across the upper half of the watch. It has the day of the week. You can get yourself a nice sight of the Geneva waves from straight there. The Maltese cross is also visible both as part of the logo and at the center of the watch. And this is a patrimony retrograde, already has 2 bids. It started heating up at 10,000 Swiss francs. The estimate itself is 10 to 15,000 for lot 11. Again, a platinum piece. If it stays within that range, still a great deal. Breguet Classique minute repeater. Let's take a look at that. It's in the open worked, Muki? Is it in the open worked? That's the Gégé Le Coultre. Let me know where it exactly is, and I'll get to you. This ellipsocurvex case design of the Daniel Roth always intrigued me, and here you have various different examples. I love the tourbillon perpetual calendar. Of course, you have the date, leap year, day of the week, month, the running seconds. Again, tourbillon with the number engraved right here. You have in the tradition of Breguet, of course, which is where Daniel Roth comes from. You can see all the traces of it in the design of the dial, the Breguet frosting for the hours track, all these various decorations in guilloche on the dial that you can see at least in 2 different examples. You have, of course, again, a platinum watch. The buckle itself replicates the case design as well, which is a nice touch. Has, by the way, also a white gold clasp. Unfortunately, that's something that we see time and again. This is a piece that is from, I think, early 2000s, I want to say. It doesn't say, does it? No, it doesn't exactly say where it's from. But you can see the tourbillon on the back where you have a skeletonized case, 15 examples made for the 15th year of the brand. So actually we have pinned down the the year, because I think he got his independent brand in 1986. I think so. This should be 2001. Apparently, there's also from the same 15th anniversary celebration, you also have an open worked master chronograph, which we will see here. Hmm. I don't know what's going on with some of these pages. Sorry, I'm a little lost, Muki. So if you could remind me what the lot number is, if you can see it, I can go back to it and um, open it up again. This is the skeleton chronograph by Daniel Roth. It is from, it's a white gold piece with seemingly a solid white gold case back, an automatic piece, so it has a movement based on the Zenit caliber 400 as well, the El Primero base. The estimate is 6 to 8,000 Swiss francs. There's already uh, a bid. I think it's quite attractive actually to see an open work chronograph. It's fun to operate and see what's going on with the column wheel, with the clutches and everything. So it can be fascinating. You also have the dates right at 6 o'clock there through an opening. So this could be an interesting watch for the right person. This is not the 15th anniversary model though, so I'm guessing it will be. All right, it will be one of the other models. I'm guessing it's this one. Yeah, this is it in platinum. Again, an open worked chronograph. Right next to the date, you have the inscription 15 years in yellow gold. And you also have on the solid case back another inscription for 15 years, 2 out of 15, number 2 out of 15. Already two bids at 8,000 Swiss francs. The estimate is 8 to 10,000. This is a skeleton master chronograph by Daniel Roth at lot 27. I think I will be here for another 15 minutes or so. So if you have any last minute questions, any ideas, any suggestions, anything you would like me to discuss, feel free to send them in via super chats. Feel free to throw your hats in the ring. I'm going to look at a few more pieces here. This is lot 18. This is platinum reverso tourbillon, sapphire caseback on the reverse side. You can see the design of the movement not only fits the case perfectly, it also has an architecture that is implemented through the same design principles, same Art Deco aesthetics as the rest of the watch. I always found it a beautiful detail that they would, in the tourbillon versions, accommodate the tourbillon at the lower part of the case with this minor adjustment they make with the godrons that follow the outlines of the tourbillon. I think it's a beautiful touch. It does give that visual effect it does lead the eyes right onto the tourbillon, which is how it should be, of course, in a watch like this. Platinum with those uh, stylized, even exaggerated numerals, the center seconds, the heat blued hands, power reserve, the iconic, pardon me, JL logo at 12 o'clock, and the railroad track for the hours and minutes. It's really, really a beautiful watch. This is lot 18, and the bidding has already started at 20,000 Swiss francs. And the watch has an estimated value of 20 to 30,000 Swiss francs or dollars. Professor is coming usually a little later. If he ends up being here already in 5 minutes, I will stay with him for a little while longer. But it's been a long day for me, Thomas. You know, I love you all, but you know, sometimes I need a break as well. So I'll be with you tomorrow, though, and maybe tomorrow I can stay longer. So that could be lovely. We have Gégé Lecoutre Master Grande Tradition at lot 14 for an estimated value of 30 to 40,000 Swiss francs. What you have, of course, here is a pink gold case, a matching buckle, and basically a triple calendar with a moon phase as well as a tourbillon at 6 o'clock. Oh, pardon me. It's actually a perpetual calendar. Right. It should be, since it's a single pusher right here for adjustment, I'm guessing that it is working with some adaptation of the Kurt Klaus module. Beautiful piece, classical lines of design. You have a kind of four subdial execution there. Of course, instead of the moon phase at 6 o'clock, you have the tourbillon, which again serves kind of as the running seconds as well in its own way. I think it has a beautiful balance because of how a perpetual calendar is configured as well. You have the added strength of a 4-digit year indicator as well, which is always a delight. Dauphine hands that match the pink gold case. A beautiful dress watch, very complicated, and the bidding has started at $30,000, lot 14. Please hit the like button as I continue this. It really helps. It gives me a little bit of exposure, and spread the word, share the link. I do want to expand this community. I'm not stopping here. My final goal was never simply 1,000 subscribers. I want more. I want 5. I want 10. And sky's the limit. So please share the videos, share the link, talk about the channel, tell all your friends, and we'll get there soon enough. And in the time that remains, let's see if I can find a few more interesting pieces for you. We have seen a few pieces by Vacheron Constantin, a few pieces by Gégé Lecoutre, a beautiful open-worked master minute repeater by Gégé Lecoutre as well. The power reserve and the torque indicator right here. The slide for the minute repeater on the left flank. Again, a somewhat chunky watch, but of course, it is a minute repeater, and it's still, even then, I'm sure quite wearable. It is a titanium watch with a titanium matching clasp, 44 millimeters. It has a power reserve up to 15 days. It's insane. The kinds of things that Gégé de Coutras does sometimes can go unnoticed so unfairly. But this is a piece that they have made, I think, roughly around, I want to say, year 2000. Does it say here? With the crystal gongs and everything, by the way, this is probably very pleasant to listen to. Recently serviced as well, so that can't hurt. And this is a master repeater with a double barrel movement that has a power reserve of up to 15 days, a torque indicator on the dial, a beautiful chiming watch that gives you an entire display of that double barrel movement. Even the heat blued screws are a delight to see, if you ask me. Beautiful watch that doesn't remain at the level of concept, that does seem wearable at lot 17. The bidding has started at $30,000. I have about 10 more minutes to go, so if you want to push me to one of the lots here, feel free to send your recommendations in the chat. I've just sent the link again if you want to flip through it, if you want to skim through it and find an interesting example. I want to again highlight something different. In this case, Debetune 28, TIS 5. For me, again, I don't know if I would ever own one of these, but I really admire Debetune's designs because to me, it has such a futuristic bent while still remaining recognizable as a classic wristwatch. You know, for me, it's a really nice balance of traditional and contemporary elements of design. It's a really beautiful piece here that is estimated to go for somewhere between $50,000 to $70,000. Beautifully polished grade 5 titanium case with the matching buckle, hand wound movement with a 5-day power reserve, moon phase at 6 o'clock. It's a really, really beautiful and unique piece. There you see the moon. Very unique and beautiful. From year 2019. They're a little large for my taste, but nevertheless quite unique. And I think ultimately wearable for that reason. You don't want to, if you're wearing a watch like this, you probably are not looking for something discreet to begin with. So this is DB28 in titanium TIS 5 with this unique execution of the moon phase at 6 o'clock. Just to again introduce something different, this is lot 19. It's a Louis Cartier tank skeleton, an open worked dial for a Cartier Paris watch. beautiful and discreet design. Platinum with a white gold déployant buckle in a decent condition, at least seemingly. Apparently, it's a special order watch for a client, as you can see, with the dial signed Cartier Paris. I think it's quite a beauty, and it's quite rare. Lovely presentation, of course, as always, with the CPCP box. Quite a treat, and this is estimated to go for something between 20 to 30,000 Swiss francs, and there's already a bid at 20. I'm going to discuss two more watches, and after that, I'm going to close for today. Please don't forget to upvote on your way out. It's really well appreciated. Feel free to send in super chats or click one of those links for your support, for which I remain grateful. But even a hit to the like button helps a great deal. Finally, let's go for something that is much more crazy. And I'll start with the Joker 5 by Konstantin Chaikin, the Russian Jewish watchmaker who really specializes in coming up with these very unique designs with a sense of humor. I'm not a huge fan again, but I can appreciate it. Hours, minutes, and of course, the day of the week right there. An interesting approach, of course, kind of resonating with that famous villain from the Batman series, the Joker. This is a stainless steel watch, of course, with a black alligator strap for it, lot 43. Starting bid is $20,000, which already has been made, and it is estimated to go for somewhere between 20 to 30,000 Swiss francs. I'm sure that's a pretty conservative estimate, and it can go for more than that. Finally, we have, I think I'm going to go for two more. We have the MBNF HM3, a brand that I've never been able to truly understand. Along with Uhrwerk, it remains a mystery to me, but I can see that they attract a lot of attention. This is lot 38. It has an estimated value of 20 to 30,000 Swiss francs. It's a frog-shaped case of grade 5 titanium, matching titanium white gold folding buckle for the clasp. Very unique case shape, different way of expressing time. Kind of harkens back to an earlier period in the 21st century where Ulysse Nardin kind of ignited a new era for these sorts of executions, these kinds of almost poetic expressions of time that break the boundaries, kind of shatter the walls of what makes a dress watch. In this case, more recently, independent makers have a little more sense of humor about it. They still go for space age, futuristic designs for the most part, but sometimes they blend it with these sorts of elements that have a sense of humor, that do exhibit something a little more out of the ordinary. And this is MBNF HM3 at lot 38, estimated to fetch somewhere between 20 to 30,000 Swiss francs. And last but not least, I want to highlight Girard Perregaux Laureato Flying Tourbillon skeletonized. A flying tourbillon is of course, they're so named when the tourbillon cage is not set down with a bridge, so it's an even more difficult expression, even a more difficult execution of the tourbillon. So for that reason, uh, a more adept, a more attractive display of horological mastery. Here you have GP's take on the integrated bracelet sports watch in Laureato, and a tourbillon right there at 11 o'clock, pink gold case. Again, it's not a watch that has ever attracted my attention, but in this particular configuration, of course, it has a certain charm, it has a certain appeal. The rotor too, in a way, has these cutouts, is itself a little open worked, a little tacky, if you ask me, for them to put their own logo on the movement. I say the same thing about Patek Philippe, so don't mind me, but it is what it is. This is pink gold Gérard Perregaux Laureato with flying tourbillon. Very fascinating watch. Has an estimated value of $60,000 to $80,000. Lot 36. And with that, we come to a close for today's broadcast. Please hit the like button on your way out. I'll be with you tomorrow at the same time. I might possibly stay for longer than 2 hours. Once again, thank you everyone for coming in. Thank you everyone for your contributions to the chat, for your encouragement, for your kind words. Thank you, Jake Brooks and Fat Winback Ben, for your super chats. They do matter. They do make a great deal of difference. I appreciate it. Trust that all of this will come back as more quality content and better live streams to you. So thank you again. I'll see you tomorrow at the same time. And until then, I bid you farewell. Take care, everyone.